a father and his son.
May I just interrupt for a little, because here's the thing. Before we get there,
Right.
One of my concerns was, as you were growing up, as a boy, I'm looking to see what kind of company you would be in. Because you look, I was a boy once growing up, and so I understood some of the activities of growing up as a young man and so on. And so I was kind of concerned, hoping that you would get into the right company, and because once you get into a certain mode, then there could be a downward spiral, and so I didn't want that, but with prayer and counsel and all of that, we saw you growing up, and even though we didn't know all that transpired, you're going to be sharing some things.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So, that's a good point, because, we'll get to the dualities of life, as I progress. But, again, when I think back to the youngest age that I can remember, and I don't really know what the youngest age is, but what I remember, I remember a few things. So the house in Houston, we did a lot with that, with the, patio, with the backyard. I remember, that's funny, as young as I was. So I think at one point, I know you had chemicals.
Yes.
In the
yes.
So now you'll, I mean, I'm sure you knew, but now you'll find out a whole lot more of my antics here. But I remember, I don't know what it was about the adventure of finding things that, or exploring to find new things that I didn't know, was there. So I remember when you go into the hallway of the garage, so you open the garage door, and there was kind of like a little hallway, and then the actual garage to the left. And I remember we used to pack things. That was like the storage area. Yes. And I remember, going through there, and I found this brown suitcase, this brown little case. And I opened it, and I saw these chemicals, and I was like, man, this is great. I love science. At the time, I loved watching the PBS 13 and watching a lot of the science shows on there. So I remember taking some of those chemicals, and I was like, you know what, I've got to create something. I'm gonna create something. And of course, boys like to destroy things. That's just the nature of the beast. It is. So I set about making my own my own mixture for extermination. So ants, we had a lot of those ant piles, and we had different insects and things that would, really take over the yard and things like that. So I remember pouring these different mixes, and in my head, I'm thinking, man, I'm doing some real science now. I'm pouring this, pouring a little of that, mixing it up, seeing what color it is, and then pouring some more stuff in there. But the crazy thing is, one thing that never crossed my mind was that, what if those were explosive? It's like I'm sitting there mixing all these chemicals. I don't know what it is. I'm not even reading it. I'm just mixing things left and right. So, but I remember doing that and then testing it out on the ants and seeing what's happening, and then I'd go back to the lab and do some more, and then come back and see how I could get rid of these ant piles and things like that. But the early memories that I have from being that young were those memories were exploration, trying to find things that you had, because I know I wanted to, like, I enjoyed spending time with you, and I wanted to, do what you did. I didn't know what you did, but I felt like if you had chemicals, I mean, obviously you're mixing chemicals, so I want to mix chemicals too, and it's just amazing how you start trying to mimic your father in little ways.
And it's interesting that you said that, because when I was maybe 15, 15, 14, 15, going into 16, somewhere there, 14, between 14 and 16. I had a friend, and I can remember his name right now, David Logan. And he was so good at in chemistry and so on, and he built a lab, and his uncle helped funded it, as I recall.
Oh wow!
Okay. And when he took me to his lab, and he showed me all the experiments that he was doing, trying to let electricity jump from one area where he had some to another area, right across, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so on. And so I'm talking about curiosity.
Right.
And then he had a glider. That
a glider.
And we were going to go up on the house and
glider.
Oh,
wow.
And that he made.
Wow.
And so
he made it. Wow.
And so we went up on the roof and jumped off with the thing. And of course, it didn't carry us very far,
Wow.
but the idea of experimentation.
Wow. That actually explains a whole lot. So, first of all, the disclaimer: please don't try this.
Don't try this at home.
Nothing that you hear here. Please don't try that at home. But man, I'd never heard that story. That literally made some things click with me, because I remember, and we'll get into more and more of those stories, but I remember, I used to love the superhero movies. I used to love, or the cartoons rather, because we didn't watch movies then, and I would sneak and watch cartoons. That's a whole nother thing, because we're going to talk about how you were able to bust us with that. We weren't ready for the tricks that you had to know whether we had the TV on or not. We'll get there. But I used to love watching the superhero cartoons. And so, of course, Batman, Superman, more so Superman back then. And then, I know this is going to date me, but I had, outside of the Ninja Turtles, then we had Captain Planet. And then there was a cartoon that was Toxic Crusaders. So these are all, Toxic Crusaders and Captain Planet. They were more of the, Earth conscious, save the world type deals. But Superman, of course, I felt like I was invincible after watching those things. So again, don't try this at home. But I would take the bed sheet to the top, because I figured, if he has a cape, I have a cape. If I jump, the same thing should happen. And so I would climb on top of the roof. And you know what? As I'm telling this story, Lorraine, I have to say this. I'm not too pleased with you, because you should have stopped me. I don't understand why you didn't stop me.
You could have gotten hurt.
I'm telling you. But, back to the story. So I'm on the roof, and I take this leap. Like, I don't even know where I got the brave feelings from, but I was like, yes, I can do this. I can fly. And I jumped, and I had the sheet tied around my shoulder. clearly that didn't work out well.